Saturday. Sorry. Saturday 3 in the afternoon, right? 3 p.m. in the afternoon, inshallah. And it's a rather short question, so you will be given 20 minutes. 20 minutes only will be given to all of you. Okay? Anything else? Okay, I think that's all. So can we proceed with our lecture or go straight to the slide? Alif is okay today? Alif Rahimi. Sehat?
Alhamdulillah sihat. Madam okay?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Okay. So we go straight to the slide. So where did we stop last time? Comparison dah. Auzubillahi alim minasyaitonir rajim. Any monetary dah, right? And we have discussed about payment of expenses for the benefit. Kat sini kot, betul? Am I right? We stop here?
Yes, madam.
Yeah,
We
betul,
haven't discussed factors.
Factors?
I mean this slide.
Factors dah ada a few dah discussed, but we stop here, right? Meaning that we will discuss this today. Betul
Yes, madam.
Okay. So any more coming before we start? Okay, so shall we start? Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the last class, Ya Allah ya Tuhan. Something wrong somewhere today. Okay, sorry. Okay, in the last class we have discussed the extent of the contributions in terms of money, property or work, or what we call in the old law as might be, if you read the case, for example, even though did not mention clearly in the Ya Allah. Did not mention clearly, did not mention clearly in the act, but if you read cases, these contributions by way of money, property or work is considered as direct contribution. Okay, direct contribution to acquire the property, whereas part of similar subsection there, payment of expenses for the benefit of the family, that will be considered as indirect financial contribution on the part of the party. Okay, so today we'll go straight to A, the extent of the contribution made by the other party who did not acquire the assets to the welfare of the family by looking after the home or caring for the family. Okay, so my question is there any difference between payment of expenses of the family as opposed to contribution made to the welfare of the family? Dua-dua welfare. So how do you distinguish these two things? Any good answer or any answer? Anybody? Somebody's coming?
Yes, madam.
Ya, betul. Tak nampak pun. Nobody asking for any permission. Okay, so coming back to my question just now. Yes. What is the important difference between A and AA there with regard to the welfare of the family? Masya Allah, what happened today? Semua dah kekenyangan atau kelaparan atau apa ni? What is
Subsection A maybe related more to the money, while subsection AA related to the energy.
subsection A with regard to payment of expenses relates more to
Money.
money, right? While AA relates more to the energy, but not might be not only energy, energy, time, love, everything lah, for the benefit of the family. Okay, so that's the important difference between A and AA for the second part lah. Okay, so the case to illustrate. We'll go straight to the case of Washtel to show that how the contribution made by the housewife to a certain extent is considered as very meaningful, and therefore she also should be given the matrimonial property. Washtel mentioned that the wife who looks after the home, the wife who looks after the home and family contributed as much to the family assets, contributed as much to the family assets as the wife who goes to work. So no problem, even though you are working at home, but your contribution will be taken into account. And in the case of Yap Kim Swee, the into account the wife's contribution towards the family and looking after the home. Okay, so lebih kurang lah taking into account the contribution towards the family and looking after the home, while rather similar also decided in the case of Lee Yulan, the fact that the wife looking after the children and the house, there is contribution on the part of the wife. Okay, so that's what we mean by contributions made by the other party to the welfare of the family. Can we go to the slideshow? I think everybody is settled. Okay. Before we go to D, I'll come back to B first, okay? But I just mentioned B here, D here, because that's one of the things that need to be highlighted, rather new law. And one of the consideration even before the amendment was considered as important consideration even before the amendment. If you read the cases, that's why after the amendment they wanted to, the legislator tried to embody this or include this with regard to duration of the marriage in the amendment, as well as payment of expenses for the benefit of the family, because especially with regard to payment of expenses for the benefit family, this is rather unclear in the old law. Okay, so how much you should take into account the fact that the party expended expended her money or his money indirectly, paying the expenses of the house, the maid salary, for example, groceries, whatnot. Okay, so now all be clearer. Okay, so B, any debts owing by either party which were contracted for their joint benefit. Definitely this is, of course, this appear in the old law, and this is logical enough, right? If you take a bank loan worth 50k, for example, and after 20 years of marriage, then the balance is berapa mana sebut tadi, 50k, so the balance is another 10k, for example. Okay, so definitely that balance will be taken into account by the court, or else it will be very unfair to the one who make the bank loan. Okay, so that is the debts, and see the needs of the minor children, if any, of the marriage. Okay, so with regard to the needs of the minor children, especially in the case of the court will take into consideration as far as possible not to sell the matrimonial house. Okay, why? Because it will have so much sentimental value to the children, right? Sentimental value in the sense that they were living there for a certain period of time, and they were going to the nearby school, and they have good friends nearby, right neighbor, left neighbor, whoever. Okay, so therefore we know that separation or divorce will give a lot of negative impact to the children. Okay, so as far as possible, we'll try to preserve the status quo in terms of the surrounding, for example, where the children were living. Okay, so that the disruption to the status quo with regard to the separation of the parents will be minimized by preserving the matrimonial house, the school that the children attended, whatnot. Okay, so that's the meaning of the needs of minor children. And then you might want to go to the textbook to have a case to view on this. And the duration of marriage. Okay, this is another important factor that will be taken into consideration, and we'll come back to the duration of the marriage. And subject to those considerations, the court shall incline towards equality of division. Okay, unlike in the case of in the case of old law, where only in the case of joint effort property, then the court will incline towards equality of division. But in the case of sole effort property, the court will incline towards 1/3 and 2/3 division. But under the new law, it doesn't matter whether it is joint effort or sole effort, but the inclination will be equality of division. But definitely the court will take whatever that we have discussed just now into consideration. Okay, so in the case of Koh Kim Lan, for example, in this case, the marriage was rather a brief one, 4 years only, and also there was no child out of the marriage, and therefore the court came to the view that the wife was only entitled to 15% of the husband's business asset. Okay, 15%, taking into account it was a brief marriage. Okay. Okay, so that's another comment there. Brevity of marriage, absence of child caring, and minimal homemaking should lead to a fairly low proportion as credit for non-financial contribution, meaning that you don't have to take care of the child. So that will be rather minimum lah, taking into account that you only get married for or got married for 4 years. In contrast, we'll go to the case of Ong Cheng Lang against Tan Sao Pu, where in this case the marriage was lasting for how long? 20 years. Okay, 20 years, and therefore the Court of Appeal approved a 35% share of the former matrimonial home to be awarded to the wife who cared full time for their 3 children. Okay, so 35% was given in this case, while in another case, Chan Yong Ki, in this case, the marriage also lasted for 20 years, resulting rather similar in 3 children, but in this case, the court awarded 50% of their matrimonial house despite his financial contribution to its purchase was no more than 4.7%. Okay, so that is the decision of the court, okay, ranging from 15%, 35%, up to 50% in this case, okay, taking into consideration not only the duration of the marriage, definitely, as well as other contribution. Okay, so that is the situation in the case of, or the discussion with regard to the duration of marriage. Okay, and then we'll go straight to property owned before marriage. Okay, so subsection 5 will be the relevant one here, discussing with regard to the property owned before marriage. For the purposes of this section, references to assets acquired during the marriage include assets owned before the marriage by one party, which have been substantially improved during the marriage by the other party or by their joint efforts. Okay, so the question arises, I think one of the most important issue here, what do you mean by substantially improvement? Okay, whether the court will only consider the physical improvement. What do I mean by physical improvement? For example, before the marriage, or just use again Chong and Moy. Okay, so before the marriage, Moy, for example, owned a house. Okay, single story house. Okay, so after getting married with Chong, Chong, being a very rich person, for example, tried to improvise or improve the house from single story becoming triple story, for example. Okay, so in this case, of course, there is no issue lah, right? Because yes, you can see clearly that there was a lot of improvement to the house, and therefore it will be considered as substantially improved. Asan, sorry. Okay, sorry for the disturbance. Okay, so that is not an issue, right? You can see it clearly. And in the case of Shi Fang against Kopi Huat, the court came to the view that if there is no substantial improvement, as I mentioned just now, there is no physical improvement, then that will not be considered as substantially improved. Okay, you read the case of Shi Fang. Nevertheless, in both cases, Ching Seng Hua as well as Shirley Hu, Ching Seng Hua was a Malaysian case, while Shirley Hu was a Singapore case. In both cases, the court did not only take into consideration the physical improvement to the property, but also consider, okay, the fact that, for example, in the case of Ching Seng Hua, the wife bought furniture for the house. There's no physical improvement, but the wife bought furniture for the house, as well as the wife also spent a rather substantial amount of money for the upkeep of the house. Okay, for the upkeep of the house, clean the house, apa lagi, buy grocery, right, to run the home and family. Yes, meaning buy grocery, pay the maid's salary, for example. And in this case, even though there was no physical improvement, but still the court took this into consideration and came to the view that and came to the view that yes, that was considered the matrimonial property bought before the marriage was considered as matrimonial property. Okay, so I want to have your opinion, whether you agree with Ching Seng Wah or you want to stick to Shi Fang against Goh Pi Huat, where in the case of Shi Fang, as if the court said that there must be some physical improvement to the house. Which one would be more in line with the spirit of Section 76? Which one? Semua ngantuk dah? Tak ada.
I think the case of Ching Seng Wah.
Why, Azri, you said that the case of Ching Seng Wah would be closer. Madam pun ngantuk juga dia. Closer to the spirit of 76.
Because improvement does not necessarily just refer to the physical improvement, but also the other contributions to, I would say, to make the house more comfortable in any sense also.
Okay. If you want to use Section 76, Azri, how do you answer the question? Yes, whatever that you have mentioned just now is correct. But if you want to use the spirit of Section 76. We discussed this now, right? What is it? Kenapa Azri senyap? We have highlighted just now, right? Mentioned clearly in Section 76, right? What are they? Among other things that will be taken into consideration.
The welfare, madam.
Yeah, the welfare of the family, AA, as well as payment of expenses for the benefit of the family. Indirect contribution. Definitely, if you get the property after the marriage, then those are the important consideration that will be taken into account. Okay, so based on that spirit, because for example, in the case of Ching Seng Wah, the marriage was for 19 years. Okay, the fact that the wife contributed towards the purchasing of the furniture, upkeep of the house, blah blah blah, to run the house, right? Every day you need to buy grocery, buy this, buy that. Okay, so therefore, I think the case of Ching Seng Wah is in line with the spirit of Section 76. As well as in the case of Shirley Hu, rather similar decision. The fact that in this case, the wife built kitchen cabinet, buying crockery and pots for the family, for the house, plus servant salary, food, grocery. Okay, so these are considered as indirect financial contribution, which definitely need to be taken into account, and therefore, even though there is no physical improvement to the property itself, but yes, that was considered as substantial improvement, and therefore that property was considered as matrimonial property. Okay, with that we finish everything. Is it everything? Oh, sikit lagi. Okay, so another issue, issue that we want to highlight here is that before I come to Yap Kim Swee, I just go straight to Ong Ah Mai against Lim Pui Ming. This is just to illustrate that unlike in the case of maintenance, okay, unlike in the case of maintenance for children, for example, you cannot apply for division of matrimonial property. You cannot apply for the division of matrimonial property unless you must have started a matrimonial proceeding. Okay, and we have discussed what do you mean by matrimonial proceedings, right? You must have filed a divorce case, for example. Okay, then only you can proceed with English. So that is on Ahmad. Nevertheless, in the case of Islamic law, there is saja nak test knowledge on Islamic law lah ni. There is an exception where you are allowed to petition for divorce, not for divorce, petition for division of matrimonial property, even though there is no yet divorce proceeding. In which case? In which case you are allowed to petition for division of matrimonial property even though there is no divorce. Anybody? Kena balik ngaji balik ni ya. Oh, okay lah. Okay, so we'll come back in the case of any good guess?
In case of death of one of the parties.
Okay, in the case of death, another one. Macam death tu dekat-dekat dengan divorce, right? Meaning that, you are no longer living separately. So therefore, you are allowed lah to ask for division of matrimonial property. But now you are still in the marriage. In which case? Give to me the answer next week, right? Boleh Azril? Azril juga yang jadi mangsanya. Orang lain lah. Siapa dia? Munirah. Boleh Munirah?
Boleh, madam.
Okay. Okay. So another issue is, unlike the case of maintenance, the party's right to claim a matrimonial property will not be affected. Okay. So meaning that we have seen before, right? Section 78 of the LRA mentioned that the degree of responsibility to the breakdown of the marriage will be taken into account by the court, and the court decided in the case of Yap Kim Swee that because the wife was guilty of adulterous conduct, therefore she was not entitled to maintenance. But yes, you are still entitled to matrimonial property. Your conduct whatsoever to the which lead to the breakdown of the marriage will not be taken into consideration. The argument is that this is your property, you acquired it before the marriage, so you will be entitled to it regardless of your guilty or your guilt during the marriage. Okay. Okay, so with that we finish. Alhamdulillah, we finish the ancillary relief. Okay, 2 kinds of maintenance or 2 types of maintenance plus matrimonial property. Okay, so we'll continue. Boleh lagi Azri to continue?
Boleh madam, boleh.
Boleh, right. Lambat lagi ni. Okay. So we'll continue with the issue that I have skipped before. Sorry for the technicalities. So we'll come back to the issues related to divorce. Okay. So this is a small things, but still need to be understood, especially when you want to go to practice later. Small things that you need to do which relates to divorce. Okay, it's not like ancillary relief. Ancillary relief is rather considered as big topic because it's something that is your right, but this is more on procedure rather than substantive law. Okay, so we'll go to the first slide. Okay, issues related to divorce, procedure of divorce. In the class before, we have understood that definitely you are not allowed to petition for divorce within 2 years' time. unless your case come under exceptional circumstances and what? Section 51.
Conversion to
Conversion to Islam, right? Okay, so the general rule is that you are only allowed to petition for divorce after 2 years of marriage. Okay, so that is the first rule. And then of course you need to have the jurisdiction in the case of if you want to petition for divorce, both parties must have domicile in Malaysia, meaning that the court must have the jurisdiction to hear your case, and one of the important requirements is that both parties must domicile in Malaysia. And then section 54 subsection 2 mentioned that the court will consider all circumstances, among other the interest of the children, for example, right? Okay, and then the court will also the court will also ask you to go to the conciliatory committee. Okay, so if you go to section 57 subsection 2 mention every petition for a divorce shall state what steps had been taken to effect a reconciliation. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Every petition for a divorce shall state what steps had been taken to effect a reconciliation. In other words, the word every there showing that almost in all types of divorce, you must be referred to the conciliatory body first, meaning that you need to get at least a certificate from the conciliatory committee mentioning that you have been reconciled, but nothing happened, meaning that you still cannot be reconciled to each other, and therefore you want to file for divorce because that might be the best way, for example. Okay, so that's is 57 subsection 2. As if, right, the word there, every petition, as if all marriages must be referred to the conciliatory committee. Divorce, all parties must be referred. Nevertheless, if you go to section 106, section 106 mentioned that requirement of reference to conciliatory body before petition for divorce, no person shall petition for divorce except under section 51 and 52 unless he or she has first referred the matrimonial difficulty to a conciliatory body and that body has certified that it has failed to reconcile the parties. Okay, so under which situation where you are not allowed, not necessary for you to be referred to the conciliatory body. In which type of divorce?
Desertion.
Desertion. You go straight to the proviso. Yes, that is one of the exception. Other exception other than that, but I'm not concentrating on the proviso, on the text itself, on the body itself. So in which case where if you want to ask for divorce for this, then you don't have to go to the conciliatory body. Which type of divorce?
Mutual consent.
Mutual consent, section 52, right? As well as 51.
Run of conversion to Islam.
Conversion to Islam, right? By this time, lambat lagi nak periksa ya. Madam nak kata by this time you should already very familiar what is 51, what is 52, right? Lambat lagi nak periksa, madam, insya-Allah. Okay. Okay, that the respondent is suffering. Okay, and if you go, somebody mentioned about decision just now, right? The rule is that, therefore, if that is the only exception, meaning that if you want to ask for divorce under IBM, irretrievable breakdown of marriage, definitely your case must be referred first to the conciliatory body. Nevertheless, if you come within the proviso, subsection 1 for example, then there is no need for you to be referred to the conciliatory body. That the petitioner alleges that she has been deserted and you do not know the whereabouts of the respondent. Okay, so there's no need. Okay, so that is reconciliation. And then the lawyer will draw up the divorce petition under section 57, and if the court satisfied after filing in the court, then the court will grant you decree nisi. Okay, so we'll come back to the decree nisi. After this, we'll just want to highlight the case with regard to reconciliation. That is a case of C versus A. Okay. Okay, so what happened in this case was that the issue arise in this case was whether the court should continue listening to the case or hearing the case. Why? Because in this case, the respondent alleged that there was no compliance of section 106 as the matrimonial problem was not first referred to conciliatory body. Okay, so meaning that in this case, the petitioner brought proceeding to ask for divorce, but the conciliatory body was not referred first by the parties. Okay, so the issue was whether the court proceed with the case to hear the case. Okay, so in this case, the court came to the view that the situation of the case came under the exception. That is proviso number 6. Okay, this case came under the exception number 6 there, where the court is satisfied that there are exceptional circumstances which make reference to a conciliatory body impracticable. Okay, so what happened in this case was that they have been living separately. Okay, they have been living separately for more than 20 years. Okay, so that is a very clear indication that they did not want to get back together, right? So to ask them to still refer to conciliatory committee will be a joke, right? Meaning that is something not practicable. Okay, so therefore the court said that their case came within the proviso, that is they are considered as come within the meaning of exceptional circumstances. Okay, so therefore there was no need for the parties to be referred to conciliatory committee. Okay, another relevant issue with regard to divorce is agreement. Okay, agreement by virtue of section 56. Okay, can everybody go to section 56, rules to provide for agreement to be referred to court. Okay, so there are two choices actually. There is, you have choices whether you want your matrimonial asset, custody, for example, the amount of maintenance. You can choose whether you want to make your own agreement. That is simpler, right? Easier, definitely. Okay, so the husband agreed to pay 10K for the maintenance of the wife, for example. All the matrimonial property are given to the wife or to the husband? To the wife, for example, because the husband was a very rich person, for example. Okay, but all the children will be given to the father, for example, because being a very rich man, then he can manage all the children, for example. Okay, so those private agreement definitely can be made by the parties. Okay, then you don't have the hassle to go to the court. Take a long time for the court to decide, for example. Okay, so you can opt for agreement. Nevertheless, Section 56 emphasized that before agreement can be made between the parties, the agreement must be referred. Okay, the agreement must be referred to the court. The agreement must be referred to the court. The question arises, why the court or the legislator emphasize that this kind of agreement must be referred to the court, or else meaning that it must be being given consent order from the court, right? The court will approve, sorry to use the word approve just now, to approve the consent, the agreement between the parties. Why there is such a need? Okay, anybody want to answer the question? Especially the one who is very sleepy might be.
So that the content in the agreement is reasonable.
What do you mean by reasonable?
It is fair to both parties.
Right, it's fair to both parties. Okay, the court want to avoid unfair bargain, for example. What do you mean by unfair bargain? Meaning that the husband, for whatever reason, try to a certain extent sort of forcing the wife to accept all the particulars in the agreement. Okay, if you really want the divorce, then I will not give you any maintenance, you will not get any property, for example. Okay, so but because the wife was so desperate, for example, then the wife said, yes, I will agree not to claim anything from you, for example. Okay, so while the wife was not actually happy with the arrangement, but yeah, she was, for example, in a very difficult, desperate situation, for example. Okay, so therefore the agreement must be referred to the court. Okay, so and then you can read the case of bills there. The court accepted the agreement as it is reasonable. Okay, and then we'll go straight to we stop. We skip decree nisi as opposed to decree absolute just now. Okay, so if the court agree that you have shown proof to the court that the marriage has irretrievably broken down, for example, okay, so the court will grant first decree nisi. Okay, so that is the first decree that will be given by the court. Okay, decree nisi and proceedings thereafter. Every decree of divorce shall be in the first instance be decree nisi and shall not be made absolute before the expiration of 3 months from its grant, unless the court by general or special order from time to time fixes a shorter period. Okay, so meaning that the decree nisi will be granted first by the court, and then it will be made absolute only after 3 months period. Okay, so similar like in the case of iddah, right? At least 3 months, then only the court will make it absolute. And then subsection 2 mention where a decree of that divorce has been granted and no application for it to be made absolute has been made by the party to whom it was granted, then at any time after the expiration of 3 months from the earliest date on which the party could have made such an application, the party against whom it was granted may make an application to the court, and on the application the court may rescind, for example, the decree nisi, meaning that it will not be made absolute automatically. The petitioner need to go to the court and ask for the court to make it absolute. Okay, if she just keep quiet, then the respondent, for example, can make an application for it to be rescind, to annul, batalkan the decree 9 for example. Okay, so that is section 61, and then okay, I'll go rather brief manner because you just need to know the yes, at least you know, you don't have to know in a very detailed manner, at least for the purpose of examination, but of course you must know the principle, definitely. Okay, and then we'll go to the presumption of death. Presumption of death, pukul berapa dah sekarang? Dah habis masa, Azri? Okay lah. So insyaAllah we'll continue sikit je lagi, right? Presumption of death as well as judicial separation, insyaAllah. Okay, so that's all for today. InsyaAllah we'll see you next week, and of course insyaAllah we'll see you on Saturday for the quiz. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, madam.
Waalaikumsalam, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Okay.
Madam,
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay. Madam, just now my internet connection was really bad, so I just want to reconfirm with you about the question that you asked me, which is about yang pasal Islamic family law tu, madam. Something.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
In the case of Islamic law, you can still ask for matrimonial property during the marriage. In which case? But in the case of civil law, there's no way that you can ask for matrimonial property during the marriage. But yes, in the case of Islamic law. So the question is, in which situation you are allowed to ask for division of matrimonial property during the marriage? And that is the important difference between Islamic law and civil law. Boleh? Get the question. Of course, you need to look for the answer.
Okay. Okay,
Boleh
madam.
Senang je, pejam mata pun dah boleh jawab.
Okay, madam. Thank
Okay.
you. I'll try
Okay.
to look deeper. Thank you, madam. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
Madam.